Our film begins in the North Pole with an exploratory group after they find a large ice cube buried in the middle of the ice. The group members cooperate to transport this cube with guesswork. Then we see a helicopter coming to take the box and take it to the center of sensations and experiments. They send a report with the box showing that this cube contains something strange, and they say that this exploration will certainly help scientists in the future, and we will go to the Al Abyss Center, which will be a large place where many doctors of all specialties are located, and there are also different types of women locked in iron cages, and we see one named Shepard inside the center after he was summoned. This is because he is a scientist who specializes in the study of human sciences. As soon as Shepard enters the center, the doctors throw his fur jacket on him. He is wearing it, and they tell him that people stopped wearing these jackets a long time ago. And they also shed light on it because of the bad smell coming out of it, and they ask someone from the center what exactly he ate today, and then Shepard meets two of the doctors who are there, and who are Dr. Woodman and Dr. Brady, and you tell him my mail. They met a big ice cube. Inside him is a living being, and they are that this is a mosquito object, and we know that this mammoth will remain an animal, and that the Russians used to work on it experiments on revival by taking a number of cells from it and inserting them into the egg of a live elephant, in order to produce a small primitive organism. He asks and addicts if the creature they found inside this ice cube might still be alive. But you tell him that the body that was kept in a place like this will surely have frozen and died, and you know that if they find a few cells, but they are still alive, they will be an amazing discovery. At this time, the team begins to use the laser to break the first layers of the ice cube, and we see them in work with extreme caution so that the body of the creature with them is not captured, and the whole medical team will be amazed, and then they will stop using the laser and start to melt the ice surrounding this object. At this time, she says that after a while they will start an autopsy on the body to know what her story is. They should encourage him as long as possible, but you don't care about his words. And you enter to see them, and they prayed to him, and we will return to the medical team after that. They succeed in melting all the ice, and they reach the body, which remains wrapped in a very thick layer of animal skin. Inside this layer, they find a chain and a stimulus that contains strange pieces, so they remove the skins and it comes at the time of the autopsy. But before that, the whole team will be sterilized well, and then they approach the body with great caution to take a sample of the skin. All of them are surprised by a strange smell coming out of the corpse, and they do not understand its cause, and then you notice that the brain activity of the person they found is still working, but it is very weak. The doctor from the Menzer in front of them surpasses this primitive man, and he is afraid of all the crowds around him, and he begins to. He makes frightening sounds, so she commands them to give him a sedative quickly, until they know what to do with him, and they understand the smell they smelled. This is the smell of a substance that was stored inside his body to stimulate him from the cold he was in, and then all the doctors gathered to discuss the case, and you would want them to keep it in the lab, and this is because they will need it in many upcoming experiments. But Shepard objects and thinks that they should provide him with an environment, like the one he used to live in, and they put him under observation for 2 weeks to monitor his behavior, and they all agree with Dr. Shepard's words and start executing him. And we see this primitive man. He is sitting in an artificial forest, and it turns out that he is surprised by the place, but he is comfortable with him and knows that he is doing well. He goes to the tree next to him, and we see him picking berries, squeezing them and drinking them. When he gets hungry, he starts looking for anything to eat until he sees something birds above him, so he catches one and eats it. He also takes refuge in 2 stones found on the ground and uses them to light a fire when he needs it. The next day, the primitive man goes to take a shower under the waters of the waterfall. And then a wild boar appears in front of him, so he starts chasing him and makes himself a spear, and he keeps it as a defense for what he needs. Indeed, a little later, he used the spear to hunt the pig, level it, and then eat it. The time will be comfortable in the place and he is starting to get used to it, but one day, he sees Khartoum, which brings water to the waterfall, and I don't understand what this is. He grabs the hose and keeps walking behind it to find out where it came from until he reaches a locked door, and as soon as he opens it, they find the medical staff in front of him. and those who go through very much know how to reach them, and at this time, the primitive man gets very nervous, and it keeps running everywhere, and he makes moves. It is strange that we know that he is afraid, so one of the crew decided to intervene and inject him with a sedative until they deal with what happened, and she says that the plan failed and that they will not be able to leave him more than that in this forest. Again, because he is better for him or for them, she decides that she will start doing her experiments on him even without consent, and we will see them while they are satisfied with him and they take him to an empty room, and at night he goes to her house to visit her and he takes with him videotapes, and what she is, it is clips of primitive tribes, in which it is shown that they have a high ability to bear pain, and he tells her that from his experience he knows that the person who is in the room will also have this ability, so she mocks his opinion and tells him that this is just a trick from the mind of human beings. Charlie will understand more about the characteristics of the body, and she will get everything she wants, and he begs her to stop her experiments. And she takes him back to the forest, and she actually convinces Breedy and returns him, and Shepard is able to enter his house to deal with him closely, despite the guesses of the rest of the team, because Shepard is watching, and as soon as the primitive man saw it, he sensed danger and went back to making his strange movements. Then he grabs a big stone and wants to kill Shepard, but he retreats to the last corner, and he begins to examine Shepard's body from a close distance, after he resembles him in many ways. Then he relaxes to Shepard and sits beside him, and the Neanderthal begins to try to talk to Shepard, but his method is strange, and Shepard doesn't understand anything. However, his name is usually Charlie. They also get to know Shepard himself, and to strengthen the bond between them more, he notices that there are secret wounds on Charlie's body, and he takes into account that it is similar to the piece that they found holding it with him in his stimulus. Then he decides the medical team is seeking the help of someone who specializes in language sciences to analyze Charlie's words. He helps them and communicates with him more, and they actually get a doctor who shows her all the videos they recorded for Charlie. Chapman surmises that Charlie was asking where he was and what he was doing here. And the next day, Shepard goes into the woods for the second time to sit with Charlie. And at this time, Charlie's curiosity increased very much, and he wanted to know the name of everything around him, and Shepard keeps helping him and telling him the names of things: the rock, the frog, and the cufflinks costume, and Shepard decides to go in and sit with him every day in order to understand his behavior more. So much so that one day, Shepard sings a song, and it appears on Charlie that he is very happy, and he asks Shepard to continue and not be silent, and Charles gets excited about the song, and he starts banging the bones of the animals he has with him, as if he is playing. And the second day he submits for a medical examination. He is put to sleep in order to take a sample from his body and see if the substance that was stored inside him for a long time to protect him from the cold is still there or not. But suddenly the temperature is very low and they have to stop everything, and then he enters his forest to check on him. But he surprises him and keeps consulting him on the spear, as if asking him to stab him. He annoys Shepard and says he can't do that. Then he gets worried about his behavior and fears that Charlie will think of Yazzie himself, so he decides to go to Breedy's house, and there he asks her to enter the woods with him to deal with Charlie closely. The next day, the two enter together at Charlie's and do the same thing he did before with Shepard, and he begins to feel on a body to make sure that she is a person like them, and when he likes him, Charlie goes to get a piece of colored rock, and he wants her hands for Shepard in exchange for taking it from him, but he fears for her and quickly pushes her away from him. And after a while he starts to get used to being with him. He tells them more about himself by drawing a picture of an old man and two children on the sand. We understand that he was a father of two children in the past and that he wants to know where his children are now. Asana, they are not sitting, a helicopter is passing over them. Charlie gets nervous and starts doing strange things, to the point that he goes to the highest place in the forest to see it up close. And he keeps repeating the word beta lot. At this time, the medical team asks the pilot to get away from here quickly, and then he contacts tribes of Eskimos to find out from them the meanings of the words that Charlie says, and he really understands that beta is a legend. an ancient bird that comes from God and takes any evil person with it. And we know that Charlie thought the plane he saw was that bird, and that's why I got nervous. And he is afraid of Shepard that Charlie was trying to reach God in order to sacrifice himself as an offering in exchange for God having mercy on his people and forgiving them for their sins. And at this time in the ice and froze, the medical staff gather, after noticing that Charlie has been an introvert lately, and I don't want to talk to anyone, and it will be difficult for them, but they help him, and suddenly Charlie succeeds in that he connects to the control device and opens the door that separates him from the sensation center, and at this time, there is no one sitting in front of the cameras, and no one knows what is happening, and he arrives at the center and keeps walking around the place while he is surprised by everything around him, and we see him banging on the door, sizzling, and this is because it's the first time he's seen him, and then he keeps turning around the places until someone sees him in front of him, so he stabs him with the spear he has. And he runs at the exit door, and at this time the plane is infectious from above them. So he keeps consulting her and says the word beta and gets very close to her. Somebody accidentally knocked him out and he lost consciousness and saw the kit that happened, so they quickly took him back to the forest, and then a number of doctors decided that they were withdrawing from dealing with Charlie a Euro's case, and Shepard felt a hangover, and he would take him back to the same place where they found him, but Brady objected and told him that they should know everything about him first. The next day, Shepard decides to run away from the woods, and he asks the person responsible for monitoring the cameras to cooperate with him and not inform my mail about what is happening. Indeed, Shepard and Charlie leave the center and we see them in a leather area, and they are very heavy clothes because of the cold, and you know my mail with what happened. So you come and see them quickly. At this time, Shepard notices that an avalanche of ice has started to occur around them, so he runs after Charlie to hide together, but unfortunately the snow falls between them and a big separation occurs and separates them from each other. At the same time, the plane passes overhead again, and Charlie sees it, and he also thinks that it is coming from God, and he keeps running after it until he grabs it from underneath. And then the plane goes to a very high altitude, and the current notices Charlie's presence, and he sees him hanging up. He tries to pick him up and get him to ride, but Charlie refuses to help him and lets himself fall. We understand that Charlie's life ended after he decided to offer himself as an offering to God. And don't forget to subscribe to the Ladybug Synopsis channel.